Hello, liaisons. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to listen to this Title III Immigrant Data Mini Webinar. I am Vanessa Waters, and McKinney Vento, an Immigrant Grant Manager at the Tennessee Department of Education. During this webinar, I will provide guidance on immigrant data. At the Tennessee Department of Education, we ground our work in our strategic plan, Best for All. The plan focuses on three priorities: academics, student readiness, and educators for all Tennessee students. As you all know, your work with immigrant students is strongly connected to all three of these areas. The support you provide to educators, students, and families is crucial. During this webinar, I'll be providing information on key fields, legal status, special cases, and exceptions. We will look at checking data in EIS and technical issues. And finally, I'll wrap up with suggestions to improve data quality, resources, and contact information. Okay, let's talk about key fields. There are three key fields that apply in the immigrant collection. First, the immigrant flag. Second, birth country. And third, date first enrolled in U.S. school. So let's break that down a little bit further. The immigrant flag will be yes for students who were not born in one of the 50 U.S. states, the District of Columbia, or Puerto Rico, and no for students who are born in the United States. It is important to note that the immigrant flag is a permanent part of the student's record and will be yes for students the entire enrollment history. Please be sure that you do not remove the yes. It is also important to note that the birth country can never be blank, unknown, U.S., or Puerto Rico for immigrants. You must complete birth country for all students to ensure that your data are accurate. SIS packages may default to U.S. if birth country is not entered for a student. Immigrant students whose birth country is missing or reported as unknown, U.S., or Puerto Rico are excluded from immigrant counts. Now let's talk about the date the student first enrolled in U.S. schools. The date first enrolled in U.S. school cannot be uploaded as blank in the immigrant status. If it was yes in 2017 or 18 or later. Enter the date first enrolled in a U.S. school for immigrant students in grades pre-K through 12. The date first enrolled in a U.S. school is used to identify immigrant students who have been in a U.S. school for 3 or fewer years. During this 3-year period, immigrant students are eligible for Title III immigrant services. So moving on to the legal status of immigrant students. Note that the term immigrant, as used in Title III, is not related to an individual's legal status in the United States. Under the U.S. Supreme Court case Flyer versus Doe, schools are required to provide equal access to a basic public education to all students regardless of immigration status. For more information, see the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights Guidance for School Districts. All right, to better understand immigrant data collection, let's talk through a few scenarios. Scenario 1. What is the immigrant status of a student born in Mexico to Mexican parents? I'll give you just a second to think about that. The answer is the student is an immigrant, a non-U.S. citizen who was born outside of the U.S. Therefore, you would code the immigrant status as yes. Okay, for scenario 2, suppose FPO has an immigrant count scheduled for next week. 100 students in the district are immigrants and have been flagged with immigrant status as yes but their country of birth is missing or reported as United States for 20. How many students will be included in the immigrant count? Give you a second to think about that one. The answer is the immigrant count will include 80 students. Immigrant students whose birth country are missing or reported as unknown, U.S. or Puerto Rico are excluded from immigrant counts. And our final scenario, sorry, an immigrant student first entered a school in the United States in August of 2020. How long is she eligible for Title III immigrant services? How long does her immigrant status remain? Yes. I'll give you just a second to think about that one. The answer is immigrant students are eligible for Title III immigrant services for the first 3 years that they are enrolled in the U.S. school. Since Sari began her schooling in the United States in August of 2020, she was eligible for Title III immigrant services for the 2020-21 school year, the 2021-22 school year, and the 2022-23 school year. Remember, I mentioned earlier that immigrant status is a permanent part of the student record. Sari's immigrant status remains yes for as long as she is enrolled in a U.S. school. All right, for our next section, we'll look at special cases and exceptions. So we're going to look at U.S. citizens born outside of the United States. And that includes U.S. citizens born outside the United States who are foreign adoptees. They qualify as immigrant, and they may choose to opt out of immigrant status or services. However, foreign exchange students are not identified as immigrant students because they do not qualify for immigrant services. All right, now let's look at checking your data in your Educational Information System, EIS. Immigrant Students Research Query. To check your data in EIS, log in as an LEA or school user. First, select Data Reports Research Queries. Next, select the Immigrant Students Research Query. Last, choose Immigrant and Yes to produce a list of immigrant students. Note that the year pre-populates as 2024 for the 2024-25 school year. As you can see, I have provided a screenshot of the web page. Okay, so let's look at running the query. You will select View Reports. Next, you're going to download the query results to CSV or Excel format by selecting the file icon to the right of the Find Next button. As shown in the table, note the immigrant students are coded yes or Y, not N for no. Date first enrolled in U.S. school is complete, and birth country is complete and is neither U.S. nor Puerto Rico. So looking at here, we've got yes. Birth country is Mexico, Somalia, and China. So none of the above. They're not U.S., non-Puerto Rico. All right, so we all know the technical challenges that come with technology, and sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. So let's talk about how to make changes to key fields. So first, we're going to start up to changes to the immigrant flags. When the value of an immigrant flag changes, EIS generates an informational error message that contains the previous value and a request to confirm the new value. If the new value is correct, no further action is needed. If the new value is incorrect, please revise your data in SIS and restate your data in EIS. All right, so let's look at changes to birth country. When the value of the birth country changes, EIS generates an informational error message that contains the previous value and a request to confirm the new value. Review the values and submit revisions to SIS and EIS if needed. And lastly, we're going to look at data first enrolled in U.S. schools. So date first enrolled in U.S. school cannot be uploaded as blank. If the immigrant flag was Y in 2017-18 or later, or English language background was a value other than E in 2017 or later. Other date changes, such as first enrolling in a U.S. school, generate information error messages that include the previous value and request to confirm the new value. Review the values and submit revisions to EIS or EISIS if needed. There are a number of reasons that LEAs must have proper data quality reporting. First, data is collected and reported back to the U.S. Department of Education. And second, immigrant data count is what determines if an LEA will be eligible to receive Title III immigrant subgrant funds. So let's look at suggestions to improve your data quality. So after this session, you want to be sure that you're regularly collaborating with your attendance team, your early learning team, EIS and federal programs, and other colleagues to ensure that your data is coded properly. You want to be sure that frequently checking your data is in your student information system, your SIS, and your EIS, and uploaded revisions as needed. Again, if you're communicating your information with other administrative team members, the better quality you'll have for your data collection. So to better help you after today's session, I've provided a number of resources here. As you can see, we have, as always, the department resource, which can be found in ePlan, TDRE resources. There is no sign-in required to get to any of this information that is in TDOE resources. You can find the FY24 business rules for calculating and awarding the Title III immigrant subgrants, and you can also find the FPO data manual. For federal resources, we provided educational resources for immigrants, refugees, asylees, and other new Americans, fact sheets for families and school staff, immigrant unaccompanied children enrollment fact sheets, and the non-regulatory guidance for English learners in Title III of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And then there's the nonprofit resources, which also have good resources. Immigrant students, how schools can help, which is from Schoolhouse Connection. And that is also a really great resource to look at. And so I highly encourage you to take a look at these resources to better align with your immigrant programming and your data collection. So I've covered a lot of information and some of it may be a little bit confusing. If you have any questions after this webinar today, please contact me for immigrant program questions. You can also contact Trish Kelly for immigrant data and coding questions. And then for EIS errors and restaging problems, please contact the district technology support team. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We'll be glad to assist you however we can. Again, thank you for taking your time today. I know that data is not something that is a fun topic to sit and listen to, but it's highly important for what you do to support immigrant students. So again, thank you for joining me. And as always, make sure that if you suspect fraud, waste, or abuse, that you reach out to this hotline to report it. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.